Have you ever looked around at your life and thought, on paper, everything should be okay? So why do I still feel like I'm falling apart? If you've been pushing through, carrying the weight of everyone else, and wondering why you're exhausted, even though you've built a successful life, you're not alone. Welcome back to the Higher Alignment Podcast. I'm Minty Lam, Executive Burnout Coach, and I help high performers regulate their nervous system so they can create more energy, peace, and success without sacrificing themselves in the process. Today's episode is a really special one because I'm joined by my client, Richard. He spent 35 years building a 9-figure company, but behind the scenes, he was dealing with burnout, sleepless nights, anxiety, and feeling like he couldn't lead the way he wanted to. We talk honestly about what changed, the unexpected lessons he learned, and the simple framework that's completely transformed how he approaches life and leadership. By the end of this episode, you'll understand why burnout isn't just about working too much and why healing yourself might be the most important leadership decision you'll ever make. Well, Richard, I'm really excited to have you here just to share how far you've come in your journey. And I think part of your journey is so relatable to people. And I think this is what people need to hear more of. So first off, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Maybe where we'll start at is, I think we were talking yesterday. It's been about 9 months since we've been working together. So let's go back, let's call it 10 months ago, or even further back if you want. And maybe just share with us what life was like at that time, both from an external state, what was happening in your world, and then also just how you felt internally with all the things that were going on.
You talk about you're a little bit nervous. I know that I was extremely nervous at that time about working on myself and trying to get myself out of the place that I was in. And we started working together specifically, and I still have this date down, October 19 of 2025. So it's been about 9 months that we've been working together. And prior to that, I'd been following you for about a year because typically you like to see their work and you can see that it's relatable over a long period of time. It's one thing to go in there and look at somebody's profile or look at a podcast and say, oh, that could work for me, and only use it one time. So I'm somebody that's trust and verify, or verify and trust. So anyhow, we had the opportunity to have an interview. And, at that time, I was really not in a good place. I was going through a lot, um, personally and professionally, but most of it was professionally. But it was also geared because I wasn't taking care of myself. I could tell that myself was, learning more about the central nervous system and how it affects you physically and how it affects your moods and your decision making processes. At the time, we were going through a difficult part in the company. I've had my company for about 35 years, and we'd been through a couple of transitions there. And we had lost, by my definition, several 5, 10, 15-year legacy employees. And and they in turn were also, taking additional people, and business was not good because we didn't have good leadership and a good direction. And I certainly was in no place at that time to lead from a position of strength, which is what led me to reaching out to you to find out what I could do about working on myself to where I could get myself, focused, grounded, to where I could actually get back to helping people.
Mm.
So it was a tough period, and I remember, starting out with, module one. I, remember correctly, it was like, oh my gosh. Okay, we got to lay down here, we got to sit quietly, we got to breathe, and it's like all I can remember is boom, 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 boom. I'm like, oh my gosh, how long is this going to last? Like, I could not I could not relax. I could
Mhm.
not get my body in a state to actually breathe properly. So that in itself told me right there that you needed to keep working on this.
Mm. You know what's so key, and I want to ask you kind of a little bit more questions about that, Richard, is like you explained, company was going through a time where there was like high turnover and turnover in areas that were like you said, legacy positions, people who had a big imprints in the company. And what I really commend you about that is when things like that happen, what most of us default to is like, how do I fix the external situation first? Like, how do I tend to what's actually happening in the company? And obviously you have to do that, but for you to take a pause and be like, okay, we're at a point now where like I also have to be able to lead us through this point, right? And for you to have the awareness within yourself that you knew you weren't necessarily at your, as you said, at your strongest or even feeling your best, like to be able to turn that focus also onto yourself. Like you mentioned the breathing thing, but I guess I want to ask you, like, how did that clue in for you? Like, what was the thing that made you go, okay, I'm not just going to focus on replacing all the pieces and picking up the company, like that has to get done, but also what is my part in this? How do I get myself up to that point? Like what made you have that switch go off?
I remember vividly sitting with my CFO and her right hand person, our controller, and we were in a meeting. And I remember sitting there, and it was like I literally was just literally shaking. I don't know if it was a sugar low. More than likely, after going through this after 9 months, I completely believe that my central nervous system was completely off.
Mm.
In terms of what I was, sleepless nights, sweats, digestive problems, fatigue, um, um, emotional outbursts. They were all tied in to the central nervous system. So I actually knew at that point in time when I was sitting in the office with the two of them, and I literally was visibly shaking, trying to get through a situation. I know that I needed to find some help.
I appreciate you sharing that because you and I have talked about too about how like you said, you've been building this company for 35 years, and from a skill set perspective, you've kind of like seen it all and you know how to find your way through these situations as far as like inside the business, right? But what I really admire is the fact that you like paying attention to your body, you didn't override it again and say, "Oh, okay, well, I'm just gonna only focus on this. I'm actually gonna pay attention to what my body is telling me right now." Because lots of us, me included, until I started doing this work, have just been taught to override that stuff, right? Like, oh, who cares about the sleepless nights? Yeah, I'm not digesting my food well. Yeah, I'm snapping on everybody, but I'm just going to keep working and pushing through. That's been our productivity strategy, our survival strategy. And so to recognize that and then go, okay, no, I actually need to start paying attention to that. It sounds easy when we're talking about it, but man, is it
Oh,
hard in the moment.
absolutely. And to that point, it was like I was working 7 days a week, at least 16 hours a day, and even on the weekends. I was just assessing and over analyzing and not taking any time for myself. And so, you know what? I was getting burned out, and I knew that I was not being effective for my company, myself, and the people inside of the company. And at the end of the day, I'm ultimately responsible for everything. And if I don't lead by example, um, by finding additional help or somebody that knows more than I do that can help me out, then I'm kind of not living by my own words.
Okay, so then you get to this point, you're shaking, you realize it's time to do something about it. We get on a call, you decide to trust this girl you're talking through on a screen. Walk me through kind of like just the first part of the journey and maybe just like an aha moment you had like at the beginning. Tell me, was it hard to buy in? Were you like questioning everything? Like what did it feel like when we first started doing the work?
Well, I think that the biggest part that I needed to get comfortable with was is that the only way you're going to be able to get help in this area in these situations is you have to be honest about yourself. This is like real self-evaluation, whether you like it about yourself or not, you have to admit where you are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. And so going through that meant that we needed to build a relationship. We needed to have a trust in our communication that I felt that I trusted you enough to open up to tell you what the issues were that what I needed to work with. And in doing so, it opened my eyes up about when it all started, right? Because, you know, I do have a little bit of education from, psychology and a psychology major that, a lot of the things that we go through as adults happens in childhood. Okay, it's just a fact of life that there are triggering events in our life as children that trigger us as adults. And one of the things early on is have an aha moment that went like, oh wow, okay. So I had two or three childhood triggering events that that um, helped shape me to how I reacted to things. And it was like, okay, well, that's something that you can really identify with, that if it comes up again, you can get past, as you get older as an adult, you should know better than to allow what you were as a child to trigger that event. Easy to say, hard to do.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up, Richard, because I do talk about inner child work, but I think like even me, honestly, maybe the last 5 years I've really started to do it more. But like when I used to hear inner child work, it's like, yeah, it makes sense, but it almost felt a little silly or a little like, okay,
Oh,
sure, like yeah, like kind of like, okay, inner child, like I get it, but like it didn't quite click. But what you're saying is so key is because yes, we usually do have, a couple to a handful of major events that happen when we're kids. And I also want to mention that sometimes they don't even have to be super dramatic. Like I think sometimes when people hear trauma instances, they think it has to be like something really terrible, terrible. And it can be something as simple as, like I say one thing for me was like my dad was never around, but my dad was always working. He was working. He started working at 6 o'clock in the morning and he'd get home by 11 o'clock at night. And so for me, it was this internal dialogue of like, does he not want to spend time with me? Does he not care about hanging out with me? Meanwhile, my dad's just trying to pay the mortgage. Right. So
right.
sometimes people think that like their childhood doesn't affect them unless it was something big and traumatic. But the reality is, even if it was a great quote unquote childhood, it still shapes how you show up in the world now. Okay, if you're an executive who's craving more clarity, happiness, and a sense of real inner peace in your day to day, make sure you hit follow so you never miss an episode. This show is here to help you lead, succeed, and actually feel good while doing it. And if something resonates today, give it a like and share it with someone else who could use a little bit more calm in their life too. Point as an adult, it's like we can say we should be able to work through these things, but until we actually stop and bring awareness to those events actually control us and our reactions more than we realize.
Oh, absolutely. The other thing that I kind of find fascinating is when you see it through the lens of a child, everything is always bigger as a child. It's bigger because
Yes.
you haven't been tainted by life yet. You haven't been lied to. You haven't been, things happen to you. The lake you used to go to as a kid is so big, right? But as you get older and you become an adult, you're like, you go to that lake and it's like, wow, I don't remember this being, I thought it was a lot bigger than this. So
Mhm.
your lens and your perspective changes as you get to be an adult. And you would think that you should be able to get past those childhood issues or traumas or situations they are. But for some people, it's harder to do than others.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you know what I learned and what I've practiced now for myself and with my clients is that unless you actually do the work to process the and like the impact those events had for you, they don't go anywhere. Right? They just kind of sit there and they fester. And again,
Yep,
that's the whole what like we're talking about how it impacts you so much as an adult is because if you don't take the time to process that energy, again, it just gets stuck and it festers. So to your point, it's like as an adult, taking the time to slow down just enough to reflect on these things it's it frees you in a way where now, we've all been in situations where we have way bigger reactions than the situation calls for. And then you go back, you go, why did I say that? Why did I react that way? Like, but in those
absolutely.
moments, yeah, in those moments, you kind of do feel a little bit like a kid. Like you'd almost like don't have control over your outbursts. But once you come down, you go again, you're kind of like, why? Why did I do that? That's a sign that something from childhood is still affecting you and still impacting how you're responding to things because you don't have access to adult you in that moment. It's little you that's running the show.
Yeah, and I would also say that the majority of the population, just my opinion, does not go to this level of work.
Mm,
Okay? Because some people are just always going to be a victim.
mhm,
They didn't grow up with this, they didn't have that, the dad wasn't this. They're always going to they're playing the victim card. And I'm
mhm.
sorry, but I see it way too often and it's like, okay, that happened to you like 10 years ago and you're still talking about it. Well, why don't you resolve it and move forward with something positive rather than always looking backwards?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, it again, that's that like imprisonment you almost create for yourself, right? You get
Absolutely.
yeah, it's like you're stuck in this one period of life and feel like you can only see through the lens of that. But again, it takes looking inside and doing the deeper work that is really difficult because again to what you said you got to be vulnerable, right? Even just being able to ask someone to be a soundboard for you, that's not easy, but that's where the real work happens is by working through that. um, I'm curious, and you kind of touched on it with the inner child work, but what else in this journey kind of surprised you or made you go, aha? Like, was there anything that um, kind of shocked you, either how it affected you or just really clicked in a different way?
Again, at first, if I go back to being a little skeptical when I got started with it, right? And then as we move through the process, and you know what? Let's admit there's some weeks that I didn't do the module work, and it's like, you know what? I got busy, I forgot, I had excuses, I'm somebody that says, look, if you make a commitment, you don't get an excuse, right?
Mhm.
Well, I broke my own commitments, but I know that we always went back and did the work and I went through the modules. I made sure that I was prepared. Um, with that being said, it slowly started to um, change what I consider to be my actions.
Mm,
Meaning, okay, all right, whether it's meditation on a daily basis, whether the fact that you made me agree to get up at 10 and 2 and either lift weights for 15 minutes or go for a walk to break your day up, because I can sit at my desk or be in meetings. I'm not kidding you, for 8, 10, 12 hours at a time, just one after another. And you have to break that up. and you have to
Yeah.
give yourself a break. And I learned that it's okay to take the time for yourself,
Mm.
because if you take the time for yourself, you're balancing yourself out, and you can be better prepared to help other people out through different scenarios that they're going through.
Mm, mhm.
Um, I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
Yeah,
that's
no, it's
what I mean. We covered a lot of material in 9 months.
yeah. No, it's good. No, but this is really good, Richard, and I'm glad you pointed that out because here's the thing, people. It's not about the walk, it's not about the weights. What those little breaks do is they're retraining your nervous system to realize that you are a priority, right? It's not about the steps. It's not about how much we're lifting in that moment. It's about, for Richard's case here, it's that what happens when we typically get to the point of burnout is we've been programmed to put everything before ourselves, take care of the meetings, back to this person, answer these emails. Meanwhile, we haven't ate breakfast, we haven't ate lunch, we haven't moved our bodies all day, we're not sleeping. So all these like very basic needs where it's like, again, if we're going back to inner child work, if you have a son or a daughter, a niece or a nephew, would you go, okay, when you get through 8 hours of homework, then I'll feed you lunch. When you get through 8 hours of homework, then we can go play. Like it's absurd when you say it that way. But when it comes to us, that's what we do. We just get up, we go straight to the desk. We don't eat, we don't take a break. Sometimes we forget to even go to the bathroom till we really have to, right? So I'm glad you brought this up, Richard, because people might be hearing this and again a bit like, oh, okay, she's telling people to go for a walk and go lift weights. But no, what we are doing here is we're retraining your body and your
You're
nervous system to
resetting
know
yourself.
exactly, to know that you are a priority and you are the nucleus of your world. So if you're not filled up, if you're not nourished, if you don't have energy in the tank, guess what? Everything else will eventually fall apart. Right. So, and also when you're at that point of really feeling depleted and burnt out, we have to start small. And I don't know if you ever felt this way, Richard, but I know a lot of my clients have that very much like all or nothing attitude. It's like if I'm not in the if I'm not in the gym for an hour and come out there exhausted, sweaty and like just completely worked over, then what's the point, right?
Right.
But when you're at the point of burnout, you don't have gas in the tank to go for that type of workout. And if you do, at that point, it's actually more harmful than helpful because now we're eating away at a system that didn't have the resources in the first place. So taking those baby steps just in the beginning are really important to, again, I say always like refuel the tank because if we don't do that, then again, everything falls apart.
It was really about reprogramming yourself. Um, I remember just what I remember honestly taking the time to lift my weights. I remember just walking around the block.
Mm,
I mean, and it would be like, okay, so I've gone from doing nothing to walking, or walking around the block, and then it was twice, and it was 3 or 4 times. And it's like, oh, okay, now we're getting someplace, right? Next thing I know, eh, found myself getting back into the gym, but I didn't get back into the gym in the all or nothing way. Like I used to do, like, I got to get in at 3.5 miles and then I need to lift and I need to do that. So now I'm actually even more balanced with that. I can actually say in the last 2 days, as a perfect example, I've actually, I have not played golf in, what's this? 10 months. I've not
wow.
played golf in 10 months. And 2 days ago was the first time I went out in the morning and hit golf balls.
Wow.
And just the sunshine and doing something different and getting reset back into a groove, um, you're now putting yourself in a position to start the day in a good place.
Yeah. And Richard, people don't realize how much when you get into that burnout place that the things that bring you enjoyment, they slip through the cracks. Right? Like when you're in that phase where something, again, if something's physically happening, feels like the world's on fire and you're in burnout, like the things that are fueling to you, bring you joy, they just fall by the wayside, and it almost it contributes to that cycle of just like not getting enough of what you actually need for your mind, body, and soul, but also feeling like you have no time and energy. So to me, that's a testament of like what happens when you actually start prioritizing yourself. Not only do you have the energy to go do it, but you also have the like the desire to do it again. Like to me, it just sounds like you feel like more alive.
Absolutely. And at the same time, when you quit doing some of these things, you also kind of you also kind of withdraw from people, friends, family,
Mhm.
just in the just in you can't take on anymore.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
there's really no other way to put it.
Right.
And your circle becomes smaller.
Mhm. Mhm. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like, have you noticed how your relationships, like what they were before, like how they were being affected when you were in that state?
Well, I'll say this about that. Um, Whether it was in that state, and maybe I've been in this state for more than just 9 months. I mean, my guess is I've been in this state for about the last 2 years.
Mm.
Okay, just just with everything going on.
One of the biggest struggles for high achievers is they can't tell whether they're burnt out or just overly tired. That's why I created the High Performer Stress Assessment, which will assess exactly what your mind and body are struggling with and what you need to start feeling more balanced, grounded, and happy ASAP. It only takes 2 minutes to complete, and you can find the link in the show notes below.
What I started realizing is that I put myself as a priority. I came first.
Mm,
Okay. And what I realized is I had some relationships that I was putting too much time and effort into. Okay. And, at the end of the day, I call who calls me. And if people don't return my call, I'll call them back. Right. I don't waste my time in putting myself in situations where there's going to be drama.
mm,
That I can tell you right now. I really do not have any drama with friendships or people in that sense today whatsoever. And a lot of that is because I've made choices to move in a different direction with people that maybe were not healthy for me, or maybe
mm,
I wasn't healthy for them, right? I'm not I'm not pointing fingers either way. It just wasn't healthy. And if I'm better now and I'm happier and I'm more content, then you know, I'm realizing that I really don't need other people to make me happy. It's all on me. It's
mm,
all on me to make myself happy and to be in a place of you know, being satisfied without being dissatisfied.
mm. So powerful. I think a lot of us n- know that in theory, but actually putting it into practice is a whole different thing, right? This is actually, I think, a good transition point because, uh, correct me if I'm wrong, and you can explain more. I think one of the, call it, theory concepts that have kind of come up throughout this process of working with you, that has helped you get to that point is what you deemed the triangle, right? And I would
Oh,
love for you to share that a little bit more with people because I think it's a great triangle is a great metaphor, but explain what it is and how you have found that to be impactful on your life.
okay. It's absolutely my favorite moment in the program, and that's in module 5, and it's where I developed or you know visualized or must have been one of those meditational. If I go back and I actually have to think about it and do this, I think that in module 5 you actually have to lay down and you have to start to get your breathing in control. And so now I'm into this I can tell you because I've got this specific date written down. I'm now 6 months into our program, right? 6 months. So now I'm actually able to lay down there and breathe and not feel the pounding. I can actually feel at ease, right?
Mhm.
And I was in a position where I must have had a good morning or a good day, or I was in just a really good spot, right? And as I was laying there and thinking about it, and we were discussing this, for some reason, it had to do with intuition. And it's like I was telling you that I've always been somebody that's been able to visualize something in my life before it happens.
Mm.
I mean, I've seen myself see something happen, and years later, oh my gosh, it actually happened. So in this particular case, as I'm sitting there and I'm looking and asking myself, what's my foundation? And I don't talk about it. It's just something that I keep to myself. Mine. I was fortunate enough that and I don't come from money. I still to this day have no idea how my mom and dad did it. I have no clue. I have no clue. I went to a Catholic grade school and I went to a Catholic high school. And so for me, I do have a very strong spiritual foundation in the sense that I believe everything happens through God. It's on his time and it's his plan.
Mm.
And sometimes we don't like his timing and sometimes we don't like his plan and sometimes we don't like the things that he's putting us through, but he's preparing us for greater things. And it's always been my belief that he's not putting me through anything that I can't handle. And there's a message that's involved in whatever it is I'm going through. So at my top of my triangle is my relationship with God. And I go to my left leg there, and it's my logical side. I'm very practical and logical, about most situations. And in module 5, they talked about intuition, and there had some exercises in there about how you actually can stand up there, close your eyes, put out your hands, and ask yourself a question about a situation. And you can let your body, if you're centered with your central nervous system and you're in the right place, you can actually ask yourself that question and you can feel your body either move forward to say yes, or if your body moves you backwards to say no. And it was like, I set myself through that on several different scenarios. And so I just thought, wow, if I can just keep myself thinking of the triangle, keeping God at my forefront with my logical side, when I need to tap into my intuition side, I actually now have been taught a technique. I actually been taught something that I can use and I get myself in a situation where I don't have an answer. I now can ask myself a question and let my body um, help me work through resolution to the question.
Mm, mhm. 'Kay, it's so
Really
brilliant.
powerful for me.
It's so brilliant, and again, I love that it came to you through doing this work because you and I have talked a lot about, like, um, you know, God, the universe, it can only send you messages. It can, or I believe they're constantly sending us messages, but it's whether we're ready to receive it. You know what I mean? And having the capacity to actually receive that. And what I think is so brilliant about this triangle, and I'd love to go into it a little bit more in depth too for people, is that it's become your North Star. Like now you have like a very tangible it plays to both sides. It plays to your logic and it plays to your intuition, but it also keeps God at the forefront of it all. You know what I mean? And I know I've shared this with you. I believe that's the true, like, that's the journey of being a human being. I think we come in these meat suits and we have to live in this, very tangible physical world. But I truly believe we have like a higher calling, a soul, however you want to say it, a higher version of ourselves.
Absolutely.
And it's about merging those two together. Like, yes, we have to execute and live in this physical world, but also we also have to remember this higher version of ourselves. And to me, that higher version is the version of us that uh, knows we're going to be okay. The version that's dialed into God's plan, the version that's, knows we're meant to be abundant and we're loved and we're cared for. Like there's not all these human hangups that the very logical physical version of us have. And so what I want to ask you, Richard, is so now with this concept of the triangle, talk to me about how you like keep that in balance. Like, how do you keep tied to God? Like, let's just start with one thing at a time. So let's start with God. So what does your connection to God look like? Like, how do you keep that top of mind or at the pinnacle of your triangle?
I'm going to use this morning as a perfect example. It's about 6:30 and I went to the driving range. It's gorgeous. It's like 80 degrees out. There's zero wind. I mean, the range, the grass is beautiful and green and the mountains are out. And I'm like, so I went and sat down in a chair and um, I just took a moment to thank God for what I have.
Mm,
And it was man, this is like, can you believe what we have here?
mm,
We have the mountains and we have the trees and we have the grass and you've created this game that I hate, and I love also, but the grass and then, obviously I went on to, give thanks for my family, my friends, and prayed for their happiness, their health, their longevity, their prosperity. And I was extremely grateful. And it was like, I couldn't have done that 9 months ago. I
mm,
was not in that place. And so it's kind of interesting that we're actually talking this morning. And this happened this morning without any, I, Uh, maybe that's the universe talking to me. Maybe that was God telling me that, hey, just sit down and just take in what you have been through in the last 9 months. And by the way, this is going to be a great segment for what you're going to be going through at 10 o'clock this morning, right?
mhm,
I mean, he works in mysterious ways, ways that we don't understand it if you're not looking for it.
mhm. Okay. So this is great. I want to keep building on this. So so again, the connection for you is like having a moment of gratitude, having a moment of interaction with him. And I know lately you've been telling me too, like you've been enjoying getting up and reading like a daily devotional too.
I
That seems
do.
to be
Yes.
right to being keeping you connected as well. So okay, so this is great. So now I want to transition to let's go to now the logical side. So talk to me about what the logical side of the triangle is for you. Like what do you do in that department to keep the triangle like again in balance?
Everything in life is like a process. And there are things that we all have to do, and it's logical. I'm sorry, we all got to get up and go to work. I'm sorry that you have to, you don't have to. Well, I suppose in this day and age, some people don't have to work, but I don't know very many of them, right? But it's the logical side of just life. Okay. You have to get up. You have to have a passion. You have to have a job. You have to have earn income so then you can pay for, again, the essentials in life is this: food on the table, roof over your head, clothes on your back. Anything more than that's a bonus. Anything more than that is a bonus. I got all three of those. Okay. And those are taken care of. Now inside of that, um the things that you deal with, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's business, it's it's logical, meaning it's not emotional. Okay.
Mm,
The biggest thing is in a lot of cases, um, where I've had most of my problems my whole life, if you will, lays in the emotional side of things. Okay. Because I'm not balanced. So
mm,
when I find myself that I'm balanced, then I can deal with things on a logical standpoint and I can get through it. There's nothing I can't do.
mhm,
There's
mhm,
nothing I can't do. That's one thing, I can tell you that my dad did tell me there's son, you can do anything you want to, as long as you put your mind to it. There isn't
mm,
anything I can do as long
mm,
as I put my mind to it. And even though I've had the company for 35 years and the last 2 years has been really challenging, I've been challenged 4 or 5 times in 35 years to the same, if not a bigger degree. And I didn't even have a fraction of the assets that I have behind that, but yet I still had the same care and concern and worry
mm,
that I shouldn't have had because I
mm,
didn't need it
mm,
because
mhm,
everything's always worked out before. So that's where I try and stay on the logical side of things,
mm.
about what's practical.
Okay, so when you said, because you said on the logical side you have to stay balanced. So does balance mean like balance in like your nervous system? What does balance mean for you on the logical side? And how do you do that? If you're a high achiever, you probably feel the exhaustion that comes with always pushing and carrying the load. And here's the honest truth: burnout doesn't fix itself by working harder or pushing more. You're not meant to just survive your success. You're someone who leads with impact and depth and intention, and you deserve to feel calm and connected while doing it. So imagine showing up present for your work and your personal relationships, feeling calm and grounded instead of constantly stretched. If that's what you want, this is exactly what we do in the Higher Alignment program. Book your assessment call through the link in the show notes, and let's get you back to balance and back to feeling like yourself again.
It is like mind, body, spirit. It's really your mind, body, and your spirit to where you're really in sync. And I believe there's two things. One, you're either connected to the earth, if you're somebody like that, or if you're a person that likes the water, I think it's called don't
Don't quote
you
ya.
might have to correct me on this,
Yeah.
but I think it's called blue moon. So
Mm,
some people are at peace on and grounded on water, and I think that's blue moon. Myself, I'm grounded on the earth. I'm
mm,
grounded on land. So when I get outdoors and I go for a hike or I go hunting or I go fishing, I'm telling you, it is absolutely amazing what it does to the body
Yeah, that
and your
I
soul.
yeah, and I've heard you share that a few times. Like to me, that's what the balance is for you. And I think, talking about getting you to this point, these last how many months, you've just made time for that again in your life, right? And again, whether that is something as simple as getting out to the golf course or going for a walk, or I know taking off to your ranch, like all those things are what help keep that logical side of you in balance, right?
That's correct.
Because it's like the physical balance that we're talking about, right? Like keeping, like as you said before, keeping the nervous system regulated, keeping everything just a little bit more grounded, right? Is there anything else you'd add to that?
No, I would say that is pretty correct.
Okay. Okay. So now let's move to the last piece, which is the intuition. So tell me how you make sure that stays part of the triangle. Like what does that look like and from a practical standpoint?
I have always thought that I've had a really good intuition and a good read on people. Now, I may not always act on it, but it's like, that person, I get a really good connection or I really get a good feeling with them and you build a relationship with them and you have a good intuition about them. And then I've built relationships with people where I haven't had a good intuition, but I went ahead and did it anyhow, right? And then as life goes on, you understand that your tuition was correct.
Mm,
That's not a healthy environment to be in. It's not a healthy relationship. It's not a healthy person. They have their own things to deal with while I'm just trying to take care of myself.
mm,
So, with that, and then again through this technique that we learned through higher alignment, that I can put this into practice. So
mm,
here's the kind of like the the end of the whole thing here is that it's one thing to go through the program, right? We've been through it for 9 months now, and I've learned a lot of techniques, and I've learned a lot of things, and I still have a lot of work to do. You know what? I had meltdowns yesterday, and it was like, okay, there, buddy, where was your little triangle when you needed it, right? You lost, you know, not perfect, but
yeah.
I'm working at it. And the thing is that now, as we discussed, you actually have to practice this on a daily basis if you expect any quantifiable change for yourself.
Mm,
Because we can quit working together. And I say, well, you know what? That was a good 9 months. And,
mhm,
the time that I spent and the money that I invested.
mhm,
But what am I going to do with that moving forward if I really want change for myself?
mhm,
So, what it's going to take is it's going to take remember what you need to do on a daily basis. And when you get yourself in those situations, you need to utilize the techniques that you use. I can always go back and refresh the module that teaches me how to go through the breathing techniques to relax. So, um, for me, it's really about being physical, meaning a healthy body, your mental wellness, having positive thoughts about yourself,
mm,
and your spirituality, your emotional well-being, and just keeping yourself in a place to where you can, really enjoy yourself and enjoy life.
mhm, mhm, and what I love about that, Richard, is, like, to kinda to tie all that together, even with the triangle, is they all feed each other, like, I've seen it with yourself as we've gone to this process, like, when you're like you said, because you gotta put into practice, and we're all human, and we're all gonna have our days, but you know now what the logical, physical things that work for you to get you grounded, and I find when you're in that place, it makes your intuition easier to trust. Do you mean? Because it's like you have quicker access to it almost when the body's grounded. And then again, it puts you into that state again of feeling more gratitude and wanting to connect to God. Because to your point you said earlier, it's like 9 months ago, it's hard to even access that when you're feeling so overwhelmed and heavy. So what I think is so brilliant of this concept that you came up is they just flow, and it's like if anyone's ever feeling lost, it's like you don't have to try and do all 3 at once. It's like just start with the balancing, start with the logical getting in the nervous system, getting grounded, and if you do that enough, it'll lead you to the intuition, and if you get led to the intuition, it'll bring you back to God. Like, that's what I think is so brilliant about how you put this together.
And it keeps you in a circular motion,
Mhm,
okay? Which means it always keeps you moving forward. Okay. Now
yes.
that's just my, I like round circles or I like lines or, things of that nature. So to me, a circle represents continuous movement. I'm
Mm,
always about continuous movement. I'm about continuous improvement.
mm,
Give me 1/10 of 1% a day of improvement. You know what that is over the course of the year? My math tells me right, which I'm not always good at math. It's about 36.5%
right,
improvement.
right. Right. Yeah. I'm so glad you said that because again, back to that all or nothing thing, so many high achieving people think it's if it's not a grand stride, then what is it? Right. But to your point, that's sustainable growth. That's real transformation is the daily step by step. That's something we can all keep up in some degree, right? And we can keep forward momentum. But if we're only ever looking for the big strides or the big growth, A, that's usually not sustainable long term. And B, it's just a much more heavy process, like, there's more
It's
uncertainty,
very
there
burdensome.
thank you. It's very burdensome, right? And so to go back to what you said, just incremental steps each day, and to also what you said about how a lot of people won't do this work, I think that's where the difference lies, is to those who can stick to the minutia, right? Like, even with building a company that's 35 years old, it was doing the things that people wouldn't do on a daily basis that weren't fun, that didn't look attractive, that were like the nitty gritty, boring stuff, if you will. It's continuing to do that day in, day out till you get so good at it and the momentum picks up. Like again, whether it's business or personally, it really is about that for sustainable growth. That's my opinion, anyways.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, a little bit on a side note, for whoever is watching this, this has not been rehearsed at all. So I'm telling you right now, look up Higher Alignment Consulting, schedule yourself for a call. I'm living proof that men too can make a difference in your life. And I'm very grateful and I'm very thankful and I'm very appreciative for the help that you've given me. And if you find yourself in that spot and you need some help, do yourself a favor, take the time, schedule a call, and I hope that you can find some peace.
Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you for sharing that. I don't even need to make a promo piece now or like a clip. You got it for me. So thank you. And just, I can't say enough. And I've said this to you before, like how proud I am of like the work you've done because, I think it would be really easy for people looking at you from the inside out to think Richard's got it all figured out with the success that you've had, the company that you've built, what you've accomplished in life. And what I commend more than anything is just the fact that you, like you said, continuous movement, like you're a forever learner, you're a forever seeker of knowledge, you're so committed to growth and that's why you will always win in life because you'll do the hard work, you'll do what's required, but your attitude towards life and how you are again just continuously seeking in a healthy way just different answers and being open to things. Again, I think people could look at you and think, well, he's already got it figured out. Why does he need this? And I've just appreciated working with you so much. So thank you for trusting me. And thank you for sharing with everyone today. I think it'll be refreshing for the people who have never met you, but probably even refreshing for the people who have to see this side of you as well.
Yeah, I think this is a side of me that most people probably don't see.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you're willing to share it.
Well, thank you for again, thank you for all your work and thank you for all your help. It's
Wonderful.
appreciated.
Wonderful. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.